Do you run Teams live events and want to be able to analyse an individual event or look for trends across a series of events? Then I've got the Power BI dashboard for you. Hi, I'm Stuart Ridout and I am a Customer Success Manager at Microsoft in Modern Work. And today I want to talk to you about a Power BI dashboard that allows you to analyse the rich data that comes out of Teams live events. So if you don't know what Teams live events are, they're a way of broadcasting out to thousands of people as opposed to a normal Teams meeting which is restricted to 250. So maybe this might be for an internal audience, think maybe about a all hands type event, or external, so maybe a training webinar, a customer briefing, something like that. And Teams live events have got this question and answer panel where the viewers can ask questions and they go through to a team of moderators who can either answer the question individually or pop them through to the presenter who can answer them on screen. And when your Teams live event is finished, you end up with a couple of files that have got loads and loads of rows of data that you need to kind of go and analyse. So I've built this Power BI dashboard to help you do that, because some of my customers said that they want to be able to get up and running quickly with Teams live events to be able to analyse that. So let's have a look at it and dive into it. Okay, so I'm going to go down to Teams, and here I can see here's an event that I ran earlier, Introduction to Microsoft Teams, and this was a Teams live event. Okay, so if I scroll down, I'm in the producer appointment here. I can see there are a couple of files, Q&A report and attendee engagement report. So I'm going to just download both of those because I need those to plug into my dashboard to be able to get it to work. Okay, so we're done with that now. So let's just minimize Teams, and then I'm going to go to a browser. I'm going to open up a new tab, and I'm going to go to aka.ms/Teams Live Events Report. Okay, and that will take me through to a GitHub page, which has got all of the files that you need and instructions on how you can deploy it. Okay, so here is the home screen, and it tells you a little bit how it works. So you can see an example of those visuals. So we've got this tabbed interface to move between. We can see what email domain people came from, what OS they came on. Look at that Q&A data. We've got this graph showing us what time people ask questions, and then this lovely word cloud which is clickable, so you can look for the most popular phrases and then get that filtered list there. You can look at the overview across a series of events to see which is the most popular, and then this one here is a user insights one. So these are all of the named individuals, so they won't be in here if they're anonymous, but if they are a named individual, you'll be able to look and see which events they've attended, and you can click on someone and get this live card view down the bottom that tells you how many events they've attended and which ones. So that's on the front screen of the GitHub repository. So I'm going to click on deployment guide, and this tells me how I can deploy it. So the first thing you need is Power BI desktop. So if you haven't got that, you can go to powerbi.microsoft.com to download that. And then you need the solution files, which you can download straight from GitHub. So if you click that link that says GitHub, then it will download that live events master zip file, and then you can download that. And let's just expand that out and extract that, and we can have a look at the files that are in there and can walk through an example of importing some live event data in there. So the first one I've got there is the actual Power BI file itself. And then I've got a couple of Excel files here. So one is the live events log file. So that's where you're actually going to put your data in a moment. And one is a sample file. And that gives you just an example of the data, and it's actually the data that's loaded with the Power BI model when you first open it. So let's have a look at that data and just see what that looks like, just so you can see an example for a multi-series event to see how that data is laid out. Okay, so we've got our Excel file here, and let's just open that up. And we can see there are 3 tabs down the bottom. So we've got events, attendees, and Q&A. So I'm going to start off with the events one. So this is where you put in a table just showing what your events are. So I've got 3 in here. So if I wanted to add another, now I'm going to need to go and enable editing. So I'm going to add another event here. So let's say number 4, and let's look and think what our event's going to be. So when to use channels. Okay, so let's say this was a Teams education series of events here. So you would do that, and then you would go to your attendees tab, and then you'd pull the data out of Teams live events, and then you would go right down to the bottom, paste it in there. So you can see when we look at this data, this is in exactly the same order as we get out of the attendee report, if you've seen that previously. So all we're going to do is just paste it in. And you can see here, these first few columns are all the standard columns from the CSV. And then we've just got this last one here, which is event ID that you need to put in manually so you can link it to that event from the first table. And it's exactly the same with that question and answer tab. Okay, these first few questions here are all the standard ones, and we've got this one at the end for event ID that we've added in from that first table. So anyway, we don't want to do the sample one. We're actually going to start to build our own one out using the blank live events log Excel file that comes with it. So as I say, on the GitHub repository, it tells you where you can get those files from, although we've shown you in the video today, and it's got a step-by-step guide on how you can add the data into the live events log master file. Okay, and it tells you where you got it, where you put it, and go through the whole lot. So let's just run through that now. So I'm going to go and open up my Excel file. So here it is. So this is the blank file when you first open it, exactly as you've downloaded it from GitHub. So we can see that events table, it's got one first event here. So that's just a sample one that we put in. So let's rename that to be called Introduction to Microsoft Teams, which is my event that I've used now. So Introduction to Microsoft Teams. Okay, and I'm going to go to my attendees tab now, and I'm going to paste in that data from the attendee report CSV. So in Explorer, I'm going to browse through to where that attendee report is. So there's my two CSVs that I downloaded from Teams. I double click it to open up in Teams, and here is the raw data. So I'm not going to change anything, not going to reorder it. I'm just going to copy the whole lot, excluding that title row at the top. So we don't want those column headers, but top to bottom, just copy that whole lot. And then we go to the master file and go to our next available row, and we just paste it in. So obviously we're just starting out here. And then we go 111 because that's our first event, and double click the fill handle to fill that all the way down. Okay, so that's us done for the attendee data. So we need to do exactly the same for the Q&A. So let's just go find that Q&A report, open it up here. Okay, and the same as before, so missing out the column headers. Let's start on that second row and just copy all of the cells in, copy those, switch back to our live events log, paste it into there, and then we just go to that final event ID column, go 111, and highlight those and fill down. So we've got that all the way down to the bottom, and that just links those questions and the responses to that individual event. So if I want to filter it later. Okay, so I think we're done here. So you're just going to continue to use this file. So if you wanted to do it again for a series of events, you just go back to that events table, add a new row in there. So let's say it was number 2, and it's going to be super meetings. So I do that, and then I would just go to my Teams Live Events logs, scroll down to the bottom of that attendee page, and then I would just paste the next one in the next blank row. And then this time down here, I'd go 222 and then fill that down, and the same on the Q&A. But just now we've only got one session, so let's get rid of that, and we'll save that. Okay, and we'll close all those log files up down because we don't need those anymore. And let's open up that Power BI dashboard and try to get to work our way through that and link that up to our own data. So let's double click that to open it up in Power BI. Now, when you first open it up, it will load with the sample data that we've provided with it, just so you can kind of have a play with it and see how that works yourself. So we can see that we've got tabs down the bottom for the various pages, but there's also tabs up the top there in that blue bar. Okay, so we're here on the home screen, so it tells me things like how many participants I've got, which are the most popular events, and the breakdown on which email domain people came from when they've come to my live events. Now again, just want to reiterate, that's only for people who have not joined as anonymous guests. And we've got this slicer here on the right hand side, so we can pick which meeting we want to look at if we only want to look at a particular one, and that's a persistent slicer, so that goes across all of those pages there. Okay, so I've just filtered down to Teams collaboration, but I want to go back and select all on that. Super. So let's just have a look at the Event Insights page here. So again, this tells me the unique participants, but how many were the total viewings for all of my events. where people came from in terms of their email domain, what operating system they came on. So that's quite interesting. See whether people are viewing on mobile or whether they're viewing on desktop. And then this is the user insight. So here, because I've got 3 events here, I can see the total events that each person has attended, and I can click on that and then get that card down the bottom. So I clicked on Anthony. Now down at the bottom I've got his name, we've got these attended 2 events, and it tells us which events he has attended. Okay, and then if you want to, so you've also got slicers there on the right hand side if you only know the name and not the email address of the person, or you can filter it down by a particular email domain if you want to do it that way. Okay, let's just click on Anthony so we just get rid of that. That's it. Lovely. And then we'll go on to the 4th page, which is the Q&A insight. So you can either use the tabs at the bottom, or you can control click those tabs at the top. So here are all my questions across my series of events. So if I wanted to look at a particular one, I can use that slicer there. So let's say making meetings matter, and I can see what times in the webinar those questions were asked, and I've got that view there of the keywords that were asked during my webinar. But I'm going to look at all of them. Okay, so I can see here from that word cloud that Skype is a really prominent word. So that's really useful for my adoption and change management, because it means I can start to have those conversations with the ACM folks and say, you know, people are asking a lot of questions about Skype. Let's make sure that we include lots of information about the Skype to Teams transition in our adoption and communication plans. Okay, so that's a walkthrough for the sample data. So let's connect it up to our own data that we've already prepared. So to do that, I'm just going to go back to the home screen there. So on the right hand side, I've got this fields list and it's got attendee data, etc. So I'm going to click on the ellipsis next to attendee data and go to edit query. Okay, so all I need to do is repoint that back onto my Excel file from the sample file that it comes with. So when it loads up initially, it does load up with a scary yellow error message at the top, and that's because Power BI can't connect to the original sample data that it was shipped with. So all you need to do is click over on the right hand side where it says source on that first row, click on the cog next to source, and it will pop a little pop-up up, and then you can browse through to find your own file that you created. So here's where it's trying to look, but obviously can't find that, so we click on browse and then browse through. So where did I put my file? Okay, so I downloaded it. There it is. Let's just navigate through, and live events log. That's it. Brilliant. And I click OK, and that will link it back up. Now, don't touch any of the other subsequent steps down that right hand side, because we do a bit of data manipulation in that, so that all you need to do is paste the logs in, and then all of the manipulation happens in the Power BI. So you are going to need to do that for all of the data sources, but this is a one-time thing because you can reuse that Excel file going forward. So I do the same on Q&A data. So I can either click on source, or actually on the top I can click go to error and then edit settings, and then browse through to where that log file is. So there's the log file, and OK. And let's just do it one more time for events. So I'm going to click on events there and go to error and edit settings. That's it. And I'm going to browse through again and find those live events logs. Perfect. Okay, you don't need to do that for the last one, the last refresh, because there's no error on there, because we work it out from when you hit that refresh button. And then I'm going to click close and apply. Okay, and then you'll just see a little pop-up that comes up there saying that there's pending changes. And then it will pop up something in the middle saying that it's applying query changes, and it will load the data into your model. So that just takes a few seconds in there. And then once that's done, it will update. So this is really, really useful as I say for either. So you can do it for an individual event by just putting one event in that events table, or as I say, if you want to have a series of events, you can list all of your events in there, and then maybe share this out to the people who have the correct access, who need to know this for marketing purposes, let's say your sales and marketing. And we're going to link this up to Teams in a moment, and let's see how that works. So we can see that mine's loaded now. So I've only got one event here on my front page. Okay, which is my introduction. So I've had 37 unique participants, but 52 people viewed. So that will include those anonymous people. Okay, and you can see the number of questions, etc. So if we go to Event Insights, I can see like when people joined and left. I can see their viewings by email domain, etc. And the OS. Okay, so if we go to User Insights, so Click there. Okay, it will just take a moment. So this is less useful right now because we've only got one event, so everybody has attended the one event. So this page is really useful for when you've got multiple series of events. And last one there is the Q&A Insights page. So we can see that there were 18 questions asked during my event. And here is the word cloud telling me everything that was asked. So again, we've got outside. So let's click on outside and it will filter down that view here of what the questions. So can we use teams with people outside the organization? So maybe I need to make sure that I reinforce information about guest access and how you can work with people who are external to you. So just gone back onto the Event Insights page and we can see that everything's kind of squished up there on that joining and leaving activity. And there's a few reasons why, and that's because Teams Live Events records all of the people who joined before the meeting and all the people who join afterwards, and maybe look at that on replay. And we can hover over that and look at those individual data points, but actually I want to see that more visualized. So what I want to do is kind of filter down my time. So here on this joining and activity, leaving activity, so let's just have a look here. So as I say, we can see here that our event actually started at 9 o'clock. So we can see when people were joining and leaving, but here this is somebody who joined the day before at 7 p.m. So they obviously just clicked on the link, just went, oh, I need to make sure that I'm all sorted for tomorrow. They've just tried it out and said, yep, I'll be able to watch that. And then here we can see the tail end. So this is people who are watching on replay. So this might be really interesting data for you to see where people are rewatching the event or people who didn't watch it that first time around. But what I want to do is kind of just filter out the head end and the tail end and just have the data for the event itself. So I've clicked on joining and leaving activity, and then in my filter pane on the right hand side I can see that I've got some items there, and one of them is rounded time. So this is the time when people join, because we round it down to 5-minute intervals so that we can analyze it. So I'm going to change it to advanced filtering, and I'm going to say is after. Okay, and then we'll pick the date. So I know that my event was on the 6th of April, so click on 6th of April, and it started at 9. So let's start my filter maybe at 8, and we'll catch anybody who kind of came early. Okay, so it's after 8 and is before, so let's get rid of that tail end. So again, picking out that date there, 6th of April, and is before, so it finished at 10. So let's say 10:30. So you can either use those scroll or you can just type in there and click apply filter. Okay, so that will filter that down, and then now when we look at the graph we can see a much more interesting pattern of when people had joined and left. So we can see there's a spike of people who joined at 9:30. So perhaps when we planned our event we had not kind of accounted that a lot of people would be in a 9 a.m. meeting, maybe like a catch-up or something like this. So if I want to get rid of it, I just click the eraser icon on that filter, and now that's gone back to the way it wants to be. So this is great for me while it's in my Power BI desktop, but the power of this is when we publish this out and share that data with other people so that they can self-serve. So I'm going to hit that publish button, and I want to publish that out to my Power BI service so that other people can do that. So I'm initially going to publish that out. Let's have a look at it on the web and make sure that it works. So I need to save that. Yep. Okay, and then it's going to look and see which workspaces I have access to be able to push that out. And then after that we'll push that into Microsoft Teams as well. So I'm going to put it into the sales and marketing team workspace. Okay, so this is actually a Microsoft Teams team, and there's a workspace associated with it because they're the people who need to know the details of the people who've attended the webinar. So it just takes a few seconds for it to publish up into the Power BI service, and then I can click on that link that says open in Power BI and just kind of have a navigate round, play it. Just need to sign in there on Power BI, that's fine. And then I can just test it out, make sure that it all looks the way I want it to look, and then I can link it through into my Microsoft Teams. Okay, so just a reminder, because we've saved it into that area, then what we're trying to do is make sure that only the people who need to have access to that, because we've got some pretty sensitive data in that for Teams Live events. So that's something you might want to consider about where you're going to publish any data, so that make sure that you're only kind of showing it to the people who need to have access. So here it is now in the Power BI service. So I've got these tabs now at the top, and because they're in the web service you can just click them, whereas when you're in the desktop client you needed to do control and click. So I've got my event insights here. I can still use all of my filters that I used when I was doing it in the Power BI desktop. I can look at the email domains, etc. And if I wanted to kind of filter down that graph, then I could use that rounded time filter here on the right hand side. So everything that I was doing in Power BI desktop, I can do here in the service. I can look at the user insights page, Q&A, etc. And all of that exact same data. So I'm happy with that. So let's just, for the final step, link that into Microsoft Teams. So I'm going to go and let's just find that sales and marketing team. And I've got a couple of channels in there. I've got general or monthly reports. Monthly reports sounds like a good place to put it. And I can see that they've already got a sales report in there. So they're quite used to browsing through into Power BI and being able to self-serve that data. So I've clicked the Add tab and gone on to Power BI. And just a moment there where it picks up my workspace that I've got access to. And then I just need to navigate through to that Power BI file that's in the service and it will link that through. Okay, so sales and marketing, there it is, and live events analytics. And click save. Perfect, and then that will link it all up there. And then that now gives my sales and marketing folks the ability to go and self-serve on that data. So they're not coming to me to say, you know, who was that, how many people were at that event, which is the most popular event, you know, what are the patterns, what questions were asked, all of that information they can serve themselves by going into Microsoft Teams and then browsing through into that tab and being able to self-serve that and kind of find the answers out themselves. Okay, so hopefully you found that really, really useful and definitely something that you can use within your organization. So just a reminder, to get started, all you need to do is go to aka.ms/Teams Live Events Report. Click on there, go onto the deployment page, and all of the links and information are on there. And because it's on GitHub, if you do have any issues, there is an issues tab there, and you can post there and we'll try and fix it. So hopefully you find that useful, and I look forward to seeing you again on another video.